Hey, today's vlog is about something I've actually been asked my opinion on a previous video, and that is from the perspective of a musical creative artist. Streaming, what do I think of it? So I'm going to cover that in terms of streaming, such as videos on YouTube, music on Spotify, or live streaming, such as my personal favorite, streaming on Twitch, or streaming on YouTube Live, Instagram Live, whatever alternative you choose. I'm going to start by covering what I think of streaming and whether it serves artists, whether artists should do it. Then talk about compensation, whether I think artists should be compensated. You can kind of guess my opinion on that, though I'll explain why. And also how much they should be compensated, which, heads up, is definitely the most complicated part of the whole equation and most likely the most complicated part of this vlog. So first comes first, which is whether I think artists should be streaming and whether I think it serves the artist. And the short answer to that is yes, it does. Right now, people live part real IRL lives and part virtual lives. That is just a fact of life. We have to get used to it. If you're born into this day and age, you're born with a screen in your hand. It's just the way people are. Whether that's right or wrong, that's for another vlog. But for another time, for another like philosophical thesis really. But it is the way things are. That's the way things are. People are semi-virtual right now. We look at our phones or our computers for a very large chunk of the day, and we have our own personas online, much like we have ourselves in reality. And as a musician and a musical artist, you have now two arenas in which to showcase your talents. You have the real world and you have the virtual world. There are two options. And when we're speaking about the virtual world, we're speaking essentially about the way to showcase yourself is through streaming. And I say this because just putting an album out for people to purchase is not going to work. If people don't know what they're getting, they're not going to buy it. It's like you showing up at a concert hall and not performing but expecting people to buy your album. It's just not going to happen. So I feel like unless you're taking the route of going completely non-digital and only pursuing your music career in the non-virtual realm, which is a possibility, and that people are welcome to do that. If you're going to try and pursue your music in all realms you possibly can, which is both IRL and virtual, which is what I would recommend, because as a musician it's really hard to get in front of an audience, then you're going to have to stream. So I feel like it is something that serves the artist because it serves as a platform. It's essentially a concert space or a place where you can share your music and recordings. So I really do feel like that serves the musical artist. It gives you another platform. And it's kind of a really good thing because in the past, what you'd have in terms of streaming is a very filtered feed, which is essentially radio or television. And in order to be played on radio or in order to have your music as part of a television program, you'd have to be part of the elite group that are signed to big record labels and have these contracts in place where they're allowed to share their music with these places. You can't just really rock up to a radio station and be like, hey, play my music. I mean, you can, but they'll probably say, no, go away, scary person, leave. So that's kind of, it's opened that up as a possibility. And I think that's really good. I also think right now, as people have started splitting their lives between the IRL and the virtual, there are a lot of people that have abandoned the idea of going out to listen to music in live concert formats unless it is an artist that they're completely obsessed with, someone that they probably became obsessed with through the other forms of streaming, whether it be online or radio or television. And in that case, you mostly get people who go to a few festivals or a few live concerts by big acts every year, and as an independent musician, that's really difficult because trying to get them to come to your show in the pub on the corner of the street, which is kind of gross and has seedy people wandering about and trying to hit on your friends, very difficult to do. As someone that has walked that path, I can tell you your friends very quickly decide no longer to want to hang around, and it's also quite difficult to get enough people to come into a lot of venues when you're starting out, especially, and venues are not as likely to book you unless you can bring a crowd and the crowd will buy drinks. So it's actually it's a bit of a tough world if you're trying to go for the IRL realm and you don't yet have a big following. And I think that's why a lot of people have turned to the virtual world. Because really, in reality, as much as you can make your entire music living off the IRL world, you can actually make your entire living off the virtual world arguably easier. Because you stay at home and you don't deal with the seedy people. But I basically, my opinion on streaming is that it is a fantastic tool for musicians. It is a way of getting, I hate the word, exposure. But it's essentially a way of you being able to share what you do with people so that they know what you do and that they can choose to support you. And so I do think streaming, whether it be through providing video content for YouTube, such as I'm doing right now, or streaming live on Twitch or YouTube Live, Instagram Live, wherever you want, perhaps doing live concert streams where people can make requests and you play songs, or you stream music that you have pre-recorded and you talk about it, whether you put your music up on SoundCloud or Spotify, whatnot, and you get people to hear it. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing, and it's an opportunity, really. However, now I'm going to move to the next part, which is compensation. This is where it gets really tricky. So I believe that musicians and creative artists provide value and provide a lot of worth. So they are worth something and they are worth being compensated. Now, when you've got these platforms, right? You've got YouTube, you've got Spotify, you've got SoundCloud, whatnot. The musicians on there, I believe, are providing a service to that platform. Now, this is my opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion. Feel free to post it in chat below. Please keep it civil, so don't bite anyone's heads off. If you don't agree with me, don't bite my head off, but feel free to, tell me your opinion. I believe that in reality, these musicians are serving the platforms. It's kind of like when you book a musician for your event. That event is probably going to feel a lot more dead without that band there, or that DJ, or that singer-songwriter, or whoever you're booking, right? It adds value to the event, and because it adds value, you compensate the artist. In a wonderful, ideal world where that always happens, which it should, regardless of whether the artist is well known or not. You've then got the other half to it, which is if the artist is well known, they not only add value to the event through providing sound and joy and life and music, but they also bring their audience. Now, there are kind of two ways in the real world where you get gigs, you get shows as a musician, and one of them is you get hired just to provide a service, essentially, which is to be a musician. This is how most cover acts or wedding bands, corporate bands, they make their living, is they are providing the service of music that people will enjoy, that will give a good atmosphere, etc. That's one way. And the other way is by having fans. And if you're having fans, you're booking an event and people have to pay an entry fee to get in. So they're kind of the two ways of going about it. But regardless, I think either way, the musician is providing a service. And I think to the platforms, really, you've kind of got a hybrid of the two. You've got a hybrid of the two, because on the one hand, musicians are bringing their audience to the platform, keeping the audience on the platform, which is usually one of the top priorities for these platforms, is engagement. And on the other hand, they're providing a service. People now know that they can get music on the platform, or they can get live music, or they can get a stream of music, or whatever. And this provides value for the platform that they then pass on to their viewers and listeners. And these platforms usually are not kind of, poor, scrounging, homeless platforms on the street. They're usually making money. And they're making money through advertising revenue or whatnot. And it makes absolute sense to me that they are getting compensated for the value they're providing the musicians and creative artists on there, who are giving them a chunk of that value that they then provide, that they then pass on, should also be compensated as well. From both standpoints, both bringing their audience, engaging and keeping their audience there, and also providing the service of giving music, entertainment, and that option within the platform. Now, it gets very complicated when it goes to what should the compensation be, like what amount. And I'd like to start by clarifying compensation doesn't always need to be in a monetary format. And I feel like people get this very confused, but you can be compensated in other ways. So, for example, as a musician, I could provide my music to someone who then provides me with graphics for a video. And that's kind of like a, barter system. There's also other ways of being compensated. Like, there are many times musicians will perform for free if in response they know they get exposed to a very large engaged audience. There are times that they'll refuse that, of course, as well, because they feel they need to be compensated. And they have the right to do that as well. But it's one of those things where there are multiple ways of being compensated, and it really comes down to the artists themselves and what they're willing to accept as compensation. I feel if you watch my previous video, which is the easiest job in the world as a musician, you'll see that I've spoken about this. One of the biggest issues with musicians and creative artists is they have been conditioned to not value their own output as much as they probably should. So I feel like a lot of musicians will take or even expect far less than they should, because a lot of the outside world feeds them this idea that what they provide is not valuable, which is incorrect. But part of the big problem here with compensation is, provided some people are willing to take that level of compensation, that is all the compensation the platform will give. And where there's no other choice, a lot of the time musicians will go, well, it's better than nothing. And unless you have like a mass exodus, it's just not going to go your way as an independent musician. Either you lose that platform, or you deal with the fact you're not getting the sort of compensation you're after. So really, it's one of those things where I can toot my horn and say musicians should be paid a higher percentage of the earnings that Spotify makes, or whatnot. But at the same time, provided musicians are willing to take that small amount, there's not going to be a change. They're going to say, oh, if you don't like it, then leave. And if I leave, no one will care, because who am I? Doesn't even matter. Even much, much larger artists than myself have tried boycotting, and it's not really changed anything, because there's so many musicians out there who are willing to take the small amount of compensation, even no compensation in a lot of cases. So my view on streaming, summed up, is that it's a wonderful tool that musicians can use as a way to connect. It's very similar to doing shows in real life or being played on radio. However, now we can do it in the virtual realm. I think it's a very good idea, because right now people live half their life in the real world and half their life in the virtual world. And if you can connect with them in the virtual world, I feel like that's a fantastic opportunity and you should take it. I do feel artists should be compensated. I think it's only fair to do so from multiple standpoints, but I've explained my main one. How much they should be compensated, really, in an ideal world, they'd be able to negotiate the amount and come to a proper, fair amount for each artist and how much they think that they're worth and how much they're able to negotiate. But that's just not going to happen in the internet world. And unless there is a mass movement where pretty much all musicians stand up and say, we need greater percentages of compensation, there's not going to be a change to the amount we're getting anyway. And you're kind of stuck in a situation where you just have to accept it, because the alternative is cutting off these opportunities. So that's my thoughts. I'd love to hear yours. Please do comment below. Sorry, this was a really long ramble. Hopefully it didn't go for a million years, did it? Oh, I don't even want to look at the timer. Anyway, thank you for watching. You're amazing. See you next time. And actually, let me know if there's anything you want me to speak about, because this was a suggestion, and I love the idea of getting suggestions from you guys and talking about the stuff you want to hear. So, yeah. Bye, y'all. Thank you for watching my video. If you liked it, I would love for you to hit down that subscribe button and also the bell notification button so you can be notified in future when I put up videos. Also, I'd love to do a massive shout out for everyone who is a part of Ninja Club. Your support and encouragement is absolutely invaluable. Thank you so very much. If you're a fan of what I do, I encourage you to check out Ninja Club. There is a link at the top of the description box, and have a wonderful rest of your day. You rock all the Lego blocks.